the studio of your mom's basement comes a podcast by two idiots in a revolving door of legends and has-beens from the oldest university in Texas. This is Purple, Gold, and Getting Old.
Garrett, do you remember the early days of YouTube?
Well, I think it's been that long since our last episode, so yeah.
Probably. You know, they're so polished and high-end now, like with Mr. Beast, like giving out $1 million, this and that. But my favorite YouTube was back in the day when it was just some weirdo in his basement making really low-quality videos that were super weird and super hilarious. You know, I think about like Minergy, if you remember that. The Energy. That was one of my favorites. Well,
the chicken sandwich.
Yeah. So one of those that I recently thought about today, and I actually tweeted it out just a second ago from the Purple, Gold, and Getting Old podcast Twitter feed, is, do you remember the old vintage 21 Jesus videos?
No.
Okay. So Rebecca, who we haven't introduced yet, we'll get to, just started like cracking up. So I know she does. Rebecca, tell me about these vintage 21 videos.
So it's basically like vintage videos of Jesus where people are doing voiceovers and are just absolutely making these Bible characters sound absolutely ridiculous. Like, I've walked on water, I can make it to the door.
That's my favorite line. I was about to say, but like, he's riding it on the donkey, and he's like, "Get me off of this thing. I walked on water. I can walk to the door." And then my other favorite is when he comes to all the disciples and he takes them all on the shoulder and he's like, "You smoked a cigarette behind the church. It's like, Peter, I don't mind you saying my name, but not when you stub your toe."
I lied. I have seen these.
Andrew, you did something, but I can't say it because I am Jesus. And then he goes up on the hill. He's like, "I performed many miracles, brought you all the way out here, did all these things to tell you you're all sinners. There was no hope. Goodbye."
And like, what in the name of me is going on here?
A lot of people, I remember back in the day, like debated it, like, "Oh, these are like blasphemous," but they were made by a church to kind of talk about like how the world might see Jesus as overly religious and then like contrast it with what Jesus actually was. But I bring that up because it's Easter week, Holy Week. And it's Easter Pageant time at UMHB, which is one of our biggest and oldest traditions, which is why Rebecca's on, but we'll get to that in a second.
I would like to add something also, because y'all can't see behind me, but we're in a tornado warning, and we've been in like 2 or 3 tornado warnings since like, I don't know, 4 or 5 o'clock. And it's yellow outside. It's like Crusader gold all across the sky, rotating clouds. And at first, I was like, "Oh man, Easter Pageant's tomorrow." And then I forgot. It has never rained during Easter Pageant. It has sprinkled up until the first note of the song, but it has never rained. And what year are we on? I should have looked this up before.
Oh, it's
70s, 80s.
Right?
No. It was like 60s when we were there, but I think they've passed 70.
Well, it feels like it should be 100 now.
Trivia for our listeners.
Figure it out.
It's bad. I could tell you the couch crew was like 26 years old, but I couldn't tell you that the Easter Pageant was. But all that to say, I ain't scared of the rain tomorrow.
Right. So, my freshman year, we go to the pageant, and I had just discovered those Jesus videos at some point during that year. And it was me, and I want to say Matt Day and Mikey Man. Shout out Mikey Man and Matt Day, wherever y'all are in the world.
Mike and Matt
podcast. And we quoted that the entire pageant. And there was like a local like Beltner Temple family with their kids, and they were not having it because we were cracking up the entire time, which is probably not the posture you're supposed to have at pageant.
What's bad is the people in the pageant were probably doing the same thing out on the grass.
Yeah, but that's my biggest and best memory pageant, but I never actually participated. No, I know ministry manager didn't participate, but my deal was like, I sold out to couch crew and that's all I did. Like I literally dropped out of, like I was on search crew. And as soon as they told me I was going to have to work on a Saturday, I was like, well, it was great knowing y'all. So I was really just a one kind of commitment
See,
person.
so people would look at a ministry major and be like, I can't believe you weren't an Easter pageant. Then they look at, well, me, and they're like, you did all 4 years? They let you do it at all?
Yeah.
Yes, but they made me be the mocking thief on the cross that went to hell shortly after and didn't even get to come out for the encore.
Although I will tell you, there was another organization I tried to get involved in that happened in the spring that is Rebecca like lowers her head in shame. I really wanted to get on the missions or the revival committee. I don't think I've told the story here, but in my freshman year of college, I felt called to ministry, got to about senior year, and I started doing the math, and I'm like, I'm not going to make much money doing this. I don't know about that. So what if I be a political science major and then go to law school and I can help people that way and make some money. And my spiritual life dried up freshman year, that first semester. I wasn't satisfied. I couldn't figure out. I hated being a political science major. I don't know what that was. And
your hopes and aspirations as a poli-sci major.
So I just remember being at revival one night, just being like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I literally remember standing out looking at the stars and just having this God moment and be like, okay, I am supposed to be in ministry. And it was this clarity moment for me of I try and run away, but I belong in ministry. And so I came in that next year going, you know what? That was a really important moment to me. That was special. That was key in my call to ministry, even. Mm-hmm. I want to be a part of this so I can help God serve other people, to help God reach out to other people too. And this, I wanted to be a part of it. So I interviewed, and that person who interviewed me actually was right here in this podcast, Rebecca Widmer. And I didn't get a call back.
Only one.
This is true. They didn't let me on that board. I think I was too associated with some couch crew ruffians or something. So they didn't let me on. And, and I'm not going to say who got on in my place, not while we're recording, but we all three know the person's name. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a holier than thou person. I am a terrible Christian in many ways, but for the grace of God go I. But I do not know how this person got on this committee over me. That's all I'm going to say.
It's fun as I don't know who you're talking about at the moment, but I guarantee the moment we get out of here,
I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
There we go.
So yeah.
I would just like to say though, that when the head steering committee was all discussing who is going to be on the committee and who wasn't, I was all in favor of Tyler. I won't say who, but there were certain people that were like, no, we cannot have him on this committee. And I'm like, why? And they never would tell me why. And then I got to know Tyler and I was like, oh, maybe that's why. But then I really got to know him and I was like, he's actually a solid guy. So I just want to say, you were in my corner. I tried to get you on the committee and they told me no. I was outnumbered.
Well, I certainly didn't fit the mold of a regular Christian studies major. I will say that.
That is fair.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't fit the role.
I would like to interject.
So, I'm
going to say something that kind of made me unpopular back then here. I'm going to say now, nobody fit the mold of a Christian studies major. You just didn't bother pretending.
No, you know what? I call his name. Who fit that mold? That true is Eddie Kaler. That dude.
I do joke. Many people did fit the role.
But yeah.
Well, before we get on into, sorry, go for it.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say, before we get off into the Easter pageant history world, Rebecca, 70% of our listeners may or may not even know what this means, but you're the third Friar Tuck member that we've had on the podcast. What? So welcome.
Can I guess the other two?
Well, you've watched our podcast, so you know the other two.
Well, we don't know she's watched our pod.
Yeah, you don't. Okay, so I know that Amanda has been on.
Yep. You got to say something. I'm going to edit.
Andy.
Yes.
Yeah. Nailed it.
Yeah.
Hey.
So you're number 3. So take us through your UMHB story. What brought you there and what that's been like for you even as an alumni.
So when I got ready for graduation from high school, I would say probably November of that year, I was like, ooh, I probably need to start figuring out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And so I didn't have a really great um, upbringing throughout high school. Just lots of drama that went on there that I didn't want to be a part of anymore. So I wanted to go as far away from home as I possibly could.
Was
But
Kesha
not
part
be.
of that drama? May I ask?
Yes,
She
she
was.
was. It was
Okay.
all her.
Yeah. Fun fact, everybody. You did go to high school with Kesha.
I did. Fun times. But I decided that I wanted to go somewhere where I still was surrounded by people that I knew. And my uncle, it just so happened,
For the record, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee.
There you go.
So my uncle worked at UMHB, and he was like, hey, you should come here and do this work study program with me. And I was like, okay. And so I applied and I got in, and then I washed athletic laundry for a year, and that was horrible.
Do you want to share who your uncle is?
My uncle is Chad Widmer. He was the inventory and supply manager there for several years.
Yeah. Thanks to him, I've got a really cool NCAA patch stuck on my laptop from the semifinal when we beat Mount Union. So really thanks to him, thanks to you, but you know.
Well, but he gave it out, so I guess thanks to him. But yeah, that's kind of what brought me to UMHB, and then I just stuck around because it was home.
And you are also Couch Crew Legacy, and that's before you were a captain. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So way back in I think it was 98, around the time that the football program was hitting up, my other uncle, his name is Kevin, him and one of his friends decided that they were going to be a bunch of rednecks, and they were going to wear overalls and bring a cooler full of root beer and carry a couch into the soccer field. And they were going to cheer on the soccer team because both of them played football. And that's kind of how Couch Crew was born. They tell stories of how the refs, like during timeouts or during halftime or whatever, would like come and sit on the couch with them. And, you know, they always would have a root beer for them. And it was a fun time. And so that was one of the first things that my uncles were like, you have to be a part of Couch Crew because it's like in your blood. And Easter Pageant was actually the other thing.
So here's one thing. I always knew that it started with the soccer fields, but I didn't know that it was football players doing it. So in a way, it kind of like the gift that kind of gave back by the end of it.
Yeah. It was really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I know you definitely have Couch Crew in your DNA. Because when I first met you, I didn't really meet you yet. When I first heard you is probably the best way to phrase it. I was a freshman during Welcome Week, and you're one of the moms in another group. And I just remember all week being like, dude, this chick is loud. Just like needs to like chill out, just to like, this is killing me. And then I started dating this girl, and she lived in Beale, and you lived on the other side of probably a very thin wall in Beale. And I remember going crazy every time we'd go over there because I would just hear you through the wall the whole time. Like I just knew he was a really loud person. And it wasn't
really sounded like you were going somewhere else with this.
Yeah, and it wasn't really until Amanda brought you around, probably my sophomore year, that I got to know you on like a personal level. And then of course we got to serve in Couch Crew together. But how did you and Garrett meet?
This is actually a good one.
So I think it was like the third home football game. And I had been talking to my roommate, and I was like, I'm going to go take a picture with the mascot. I'm going to do it. This is the game that I'm going to do it. And so I finally like walked up to the mascot, had no idea who it was. And I said, "Hey, can I take a picture with you?" So I took a picture and still had no idea at the time that it was Garrett. And then Garrett, like a couple of weeks later, was just like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm like, "I do not know you." And
I would
just thought
forget.
that he was really creepy. And then he ended up being like, "Oh, like I'm the mascot," kind of thing. And I was like, "Oh." So that's kind of how Garrett and I met, I guess.
Football related. Very cool.
It did. That's a valid point. So you'd meet so many people as mascots, especially during Welcome Week, that you kind of forget who's met me outside the mask. I don't even know. And then even outside of it, when it's a small school and you meet all those people, like Facebook requests all over the place. And so I got to the point where I just assumed I knew everybody. And if I was meeting someone for the first time, it's like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." Like, I just wanted to pretend I remembered meeting them, so I didn't look like an idiot if I had.
Basically, you were like Spider-Man at the end of the last movie.
I'm not gonna spoil that for those who've not seen it, but they do need to get with it.
Past spoil time.
What's the statute of limitations on spoilers for Marvel movies?
To me, it's a month. You've got a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
A month?
Yeah, a month. Like if you haven't watched it by then you really don't care that much.
Okay.
Hey Rebecca, how many Marvel movies have you watched? That limitations is coming up.
My brother is a huge Marvel fan. I said Marvel. I meant Marvel fan. And so I actually have watched several of the Spider-Man. I've watched I think almost all of the Batman. And then I did watch Avengers.
Batman's DC, but I'll allow it.
All right.
Okay, whatever. Close enough.
All right. So I think we know where this is going to go. It's part of why we brought you on. But one of the questions we always ask people are like, what are some of your favorite traditions that you took part in while at UMHB?
And which one was the best?
I would say that I was involved in quite a bit. I wanted to be able to have the full college experience. So somebody would be like, "Hey, you should do this." And I'd be like, "Okay." I think that probably my favorite, can I pick two?
Yeah.
Okay. Probably my favorite two that I got to serve and be a part of were definitely Revival. And
I would have known about that.
I'm sorry. And I also really did enjoy Easter Pageant as well. That's not to say that I didn't love Couch Crew, because I definitely did. I
wouldn't have if I was captain in that era.
I was just very passionate just about just sharing the love of Jesus with my peers and with the community. So those were two ministries that I just loved being a part of.
So what's one that you wish you had taken part in?
I was actually thinking about this the other day. For being such an outspoken person, one thing that I actually was never a part of was Miss UMHB.
Which is hilarious, because on Amanda's episode, she was like, "Heck no, would never have done it."
I mean, I don't know it. Like I would have been okay with like the talent part of it, but the whole walking across stage in heels and walking down the stairs in heels, that was not me. I mean, like I literally almost fell flat on my butt at graduation because I decided to wear heels that day. So
what would your talent have been?
Say it again.
What would your talent have been?
Oh, I don't know. I have so many.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I maybe would have done like a monologue. I'm not sure that I would have had the guts to sing, but I probably would have done a monologue.
That's cool.
Well, I know this is the Easter pageant episode. We're about to get into it, but I just, so since we touch on this slightly on other episodes when Andy and Amanda were here, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" So the Friar Tuck was the name of our circle of friends. We called it a family, but it was more of like a Sopranos family on the college level. So I have to ask. So we knew you my senior year, but you didn't really hang out with us a whole lot then. So how did you kind of come into our circle?
Okay. I gotta be honest. So I had heard stories about this group of people.
And can I finish it again? Stories are the same stories that kept me from being on the revival committee.
No.
Oh, okay. Just my obnoxious self then. Got it. Cool. Continue on.
Yes. So I had heard stories and speculations about several members that were part of the Friar Tuck gang. And they were like, oh, all they do is they drink and they party and they I know, but that is what I was told. And being a goody two shoes kind of girl, I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. So I was like, I'll say hi to them, I'll be friendly with them, but I'm not going to associate with them. And when I became a couch crew captain, I started kind of thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the one that's going to be making them waffles and pancakes the next morning to sober them up. And
I would have taken the pancakes and the waffles.
Where's my waffles?
Yeah. Well, but then I realized, oh, that's not what these people do. They just are loud and obnoxious, just like I am. And they just like to have fun and hang out. So
I'll still take waffles though if you ever want
to. Deal. I'll make sure it happens. But I think that I probably started coming around like after I graduated, just because all of the people that I kind of hung out with in college had kind of gone their own way, and I was like, well, these people are accepting me and they're nice and they like me and they're fun. Sure, why not? And y'all just became family.
It was really when you and Amanda were living together in Turtle Creek, and then like me and Garrett were also living together in Turtle Creek as well, right?
And Hannah and Jill.
That's right. Yeah, dude.
Woo. I would just like to address the rumor that Tyler and I launched a massive 1980s TV off of a balcony. It's absolutely true.
Yeah, it was absolutely true. That's so like, yeah, we were rowdy, but like not in like the drunken crazy route.
We made sure that no one was underneath before we threw it, so we had cautions.
Yeah. But I guess is it worse that people looked at the rowdiness we got up to and thought and just assumed that there had to be drugs or alcohol related, but there really wasn't? Is that actually worse?
I think at our current age, to look back on it, I think it's hilarious now. Like, because if we were at Texas State, people would have thought, oh, there goes the youth group,
Yeah, no, what that is like, you have to understand this in the context of small Baptist school. Like,
yeah.
We were like, yeah, a youth group at Texas State.
Although I do tell some stories to people that went to the schools and they're like, whoa, y'all went hard at the Baptist college. I'm like, did we? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't think so.
But one of the more saintly things we did was Easter Pageant.
Yes.
And I think a good way to handle, since Tyler didn't really get that involved with it, I think there's three perspectives we can take here. I want to tell about 07. And then Rebecca and I can both tell about the next 3 years. Tyler can mention anything he did in the crowd, like making the YouTube references.
Well, can we just like back up a little bit and kind of, for someone, because there shockingly, there actually are a few people who are not UMHB grads who listen to this.
True.
But really briefly, just kind of explain like what Easter Pageant is and kind of a little bit of its history.
Yeah, because for our Whitewater and Union listeners who need Jesus, this would be a good thing.
You want me to explain?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So basically what we do is there is somebody who is chosen to portray Mary, Jesus, and then somebody who is chosen for director of the pageant. It's completely student-led, and it is just basically the story of Christ's life from the time that he was performing miracles, and it goes into the crucifixion, the resurrection, just basically the whole Easter story. And there are some really powerful moments that really tug at your heartstrings as you're watching it, and even for those of us that were able to be a part of it as well.
I think one of the coolest things about it is how much of the town comes out to it. Like, it's really not just a UMHB tradition. It's really like a Bell County tradition.
Yeah,
it really is.
Yeah,
Central Texas.
Everyone from local churches and schools and like they come out, and I think there's like 3 showings on the Wednesday before Easter.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big deal. And then who gets to play Jesus is like a huge deal. Like he's known as Jesus the whole year. He has to grow out his beard. Like a lot of people wear the fake ones, but Jesus always has to have a real one, I think.
Sometimes it was nasty.
Yeah.
Sorry, Oberach. Love you, buddy.
My favorite chant I ever came up with was at a soccer game when our goalkeeper for that year was selected to play Jesus. And so every time he made a save, I'd yell, "Jesus saves!" It was amazing.
What did he ever find out about that? Like, what?
No, he did. He actually asked us to stop politely. He was like, "It's funny." He did, he just he wasn't a huge fan of it, so we didn't do it because of that. But we had several games where we did it, and it was fun. And what's shocking is, like, I want to say that's the only chant that Randy Mann ever liked that we did, but it wasn't him who made us stop. It was
that's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a band maybe like that one.
Well, if you want to go way back in time with this thing, I was talking to my grandmother last week on the phone. She's the permanent class president of the class of 1950, 58, 59, I don't know, somewhere in the late 50s. And she played John, I believe, the apostle, because back then there were no dudes.
Wow.
Yeah. So
did she probably overlapped with a little bit when they're at school together, right?
I'm gonna bleep that so I don't get a phone call. Yeah, so fast forward, I guess, to my freshman year, and in 2007 something went wrong. I won't go into too much description with this topic, but something they put too much makeup type stuff, too many cosmetics, and my beard that they slapped on me was just really scruffy. And I walked out, and everyone I knew busted out laughing. And Weston Savell told me I looked more like a jihadist than anybody out there. So everyone kept calling me that and other things the rest of the production. But I went to every practice for weeks. And before we get into Rebecca's freshman year, I'll just say every week I went to rehearsal for that. I went to every one the next year when I actually had a role. My junior year, I went to practice a couple or so times, and then my senior year I showed up the day of. I told the director, save me a costume and I'll just show up. But yeah, so that freshman year, nothing too eventful. But let's see. Oh yeah, Jeff Sutton was Jesus that year. Fun fact. Let's see. Yeah, so the next year was your freshman year, and that was what memories do you have of Easter Pageant? And by the way, Kyle Tubbs was going to join us tonight. Something came up last minute, but he was the director that year. So shout out to Kyle.
He was. So I just remember, like, there's so many different things that the crowd is a part of during the entire play. And, during the practices when we're yelling, like, crucify him, like, it was just kind of like, oh, haha, this is funny. Well, not funny, but like this, like, I wasn't really taking it very seriously.
Patrick McDonald and me yelling the Winnie the Pooh characters towards the cross because we didn't have, that was fun.
Yes. Yeah. But I think that, like, the day of pageant, when we were in our costumes and, like, it was the real deal, that's when it hit me, like, oh my goodness, like, I would be one of these people that was screaming at him on the cross. And it just became more powerful in that moment, I guess, just because I didn't have that mindset throughout practices. But I don't know what was so different about the day of, but like I'm yelling, crucify him, he's a criminal, through like tears streaming down my face. And so that was definitely something that stood out that year. But probably the other thing that stood out, and I don't know if you remember this, Garrett, there was a cast member who, no pun intended, who during dress rehearsal actually popped her clavicle out of socket.
Yes.
Because I was running and we had like linked arms with each other, and I pulled her arm as we were running and her clavicle popped out of socket. She was rushed to the emergency room, and after practice that day, like I actually went to check in on her and be like, I'm so sorry. And they were really short on doctors and nurses in the ER that day. And I actually had to like pull her shoulders back as the doctor popped her clavicle back in the socket. It was horrible. So that's what I remember about my freshman year of Easter Pageant.
Jesus, you want to take a stab at healing this? Because if not,
yeah,
Scott and White.
No, it was so funny. Josh Hobroch played Jesus that year.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like we joked the entire next day, you know, oh, like, come on, heal her kind of thing. So
nice.
Yeah, there was I felt so bad for Josh one time. Like, you know, he'd walk into Hardy and everybody was throwing the Jesus jokes at him. And there was one day somebody who had a pretty significant disability came up to him and said, "Hey, Jesus,
I remember
still waiting on that miracle." And how do you even respond to that? Like, he's just like, I don't know what to say right now.
That's sort of the fun of what I was talking about when it was such a big deal about who Jesus was, because it would just, you'd have jokes and you'd have stuff that would follow them all year long.
I left one out from my freshman year. Chris Robinson, C-Rob, who was on, I think, the 3rd or 4th episode of this podcast when we had the ABC fraternity. So at the very end, you know, when we reemerge and they're playing the song, it's like, he is risen. Jesus is back. He's alive. So everyone's like getting into it and walks up and just had such a happy look on his face. He goes, Jesus is naked. And like, we all just like lost composure and we're like trying so hard not to laugh as we bow down. I mean, like, totally ruined the moment. It was awesome. But
it was part of the deal with the pageant, which has always driven me a little bit crazy, is the actors they're not actually mic'd up, right? It's all like a track in the back. And
they still use the track, but I think there's a few more speaking roles now, and anyone that sang still had. Yeah. I loved it because, man, it's so funny watching a recorded voice from like 1970 when someone you know is mouthing the words.
Yes.
But that that was because there was a lot of that my freshman year. It was my first exposure just to seeing people you know, but it was a different voice. And it was really funny too, because you start to buy into the moment. As soon as you get into the moment and you feel like you're actually in Jerusalem, somebody will do something hilarious that throws you off. Like Tommy Wilson was Barabbas, and they brought him out my freshman year, and he didn't tell anyone during the day that he had like filled his mouth full of water. So when he's throwing his head around, he like spewed water, or maybe it was your freshman year, just spewed water everywhere. I was like, whoa, he pulled that rabid thing off. But your freshman year is probably the funniest experience I had through college with Easter Pageant. Because I remember the Jehovah Jireh song, and they were like, y'all aren't into it enough, dance. And we're like, we are. They're like, the Hebrew dance, do it. And we're like, we don't know what to do. So they subbed it out with Larger Than Life by the Backstreet Boys, and they blasted that for the scene, and we all had to practice. And they're like, all right, the energy you used for Backstreet Boys, do that for the actual song the day of. And then just little things during Tubbs's rehearsals that we probably drove Mike crazy. But there's one where like Hobroch went into the tomb, but Preach came out. Like, that's how he was. And then we had, and then that was the year where I was selected to be the mocking thief. And so Hobroch and I would just be like roasting each other while we're up on the crosses. And I won't forget the dress rehearsal. We had those like loincloths or whatever. Well, there was like a piece that you put on under so you didn't flash everybody, and then the actual cloth. Well, Jeremy Williams, who was the repentant thief, hadn't been to the previous 2 rehearsals and didn't know where all the stuff was. So he shows up late, and all he had on was like this little cloth thong underneath. He's like, guys, I don't think my costume fits. And we're about to go out there. And they're like, dude, you cannot wear this. Or he's like, well, it needs to be biblically accurate. And so they called it the Jew string for the rest of rehearsal. So yeah, all that. And then after the, at the end, when everyone comes out to see that Christ has risen, well, Judas and the non-repentant thief still have to be backstage. So John Gross and I called it the Hell Corner, and he and I would just hang out in it the whole time. And then I just remember that usually you're talking about someone going to the hospital for the clavicle. They told us freshman, sophomore year, they said, guys, they used to send Jesus to the hospital on and off because of how bad the Roman guards beat him up on the cross. And it was like a game. They said, they're cracking down on that, so we're not going to hit you as hard. And they still slap the crap out of us. I remember Rusty Roper walks around, and I tried to like honk a loogie in front of him and make it look like spit. Well, the wind caught it, and I actually spit on him. And he kind of looks around and he looks up at me. I could tell he was like halfway character, but also halfway very irritated that this happened. I mean, he landed a hit just right to my ribs. I was like, oh, that one smarts. But they didn't leave too many bruises on us. But it was great because after the finale, when all the characters come out to take a bow, the Smedleys and some of the football players and the couch crew captains, they were the Roman guards. So they actually lifted us up like the Rudy style, and took the thieves from the cross out and were like lifting us up and down and celebrating. So it was a joyous year.
So you saying you were a thief actually reminded me of something. So that year, I was a buyer and seller I was a seller in the temple court. And so at the beginning, when everybody is, kind of just walking around and Mary is narrating what's going on, I had been carrying around a basket and it had one apple in it. And so Kyle had told you to find me and to come and steal that apple.
Yeah.
But he didn't tell me that.
Oh, you didn't know?
No. So you came by at practice and stole my apple. And I was like, no, you're not supposed to do that. So I started chasing you around. And I'm like, Garrett, give the apple back. And you wouldn't. And you just kept walking off. So, but then I realized, oh, he's a thief. I get it now.
I didn't know you didn't know that.
That's great. That's some good directing. I watch a bunch of behind the scenes movie stuff, and there's a lot of stories you hear about the director telling one actor to do something, but not the other actor. And so you get like a real reaction. I love
two best examples. Well, actually, this isn't an example. It's just behind this, because I know Tyler loves this movie just like I do. It's a Wonderful Life. The scene where Uncle Billy is drunk at the holiday party and he's like, point me in the right direction. He walks up. The crash you hear, he actually fell onto the set, and so Jimmy Stewart's reaction is an actual reaction to him just wiping out. But I think the funniest is Talladega Nights, when Will Ferrell kisses Sacha Baron Cohen. Will Ferrell did not tell him he was about to do that, and it wasn't in the script. So those do make for some great movie moments.
That's awesome.
So what you were a buyer or a seller, I guess, your first year. What were the other roles that you did throughout your tenure at UMHB?
So my sophomore year, I was a man. That was fun.
Yeah.
Got like coffee grounds, like
very progressive of UMHB.
Yeah.
Fun to be a man. UMHB is the pinnacle of progressivism. Let's just throw that out there.
My junior year, I was Jarius's wife, so the dead girl's mom. Okay. And then my senior year, I was the bleeding woman.
You had some depressing roles, I must say.
I did.
Dang.
Because I was just thinking, what if, like Jesus is an earned spot, Mary is an earned spot through leadership. What if they made all the positions like Judas, the adulterous woman? Like, what if everyone literally just earned? It's like, all right, according to our dean's office records, adulterous woman. Yeah.
So funny story. Actually, my senior year, I was a committee head. So I was in charge of all the props and making sure that they were placed out and everything. And there was actually somebody else that was chosen to play the bleeding woman, but she never showed up to practice. I think she was there 2 times total. So I forgot who the director was that year, but they basically came up to me and they were like, you've seen Easter Pageant enough times. Will you play the bleeding woman? And I was like, you realize that pageant is tomorrow, right? And they were like, yeah, you'll be fine. So the first showing of Easter Pageant that Wednesday, I'm like crawling to Jesus, and like nobody is letting me through because the crowd is following him. And I'm like trying to make it seem like I'm in pain, but also trying to be like, move out of my way. I have to touch him at the right moment before he runs off and heals this girl and all this stuff. And so like I literally was like fast, like baby crawling, and it was quite humorous. And so I was just like, I'm gonna need you to like not go off so fast, Mark.
So I hate that I keep saying, oh, we'll go year by year, and then I keep thinking of stuff from the prior year. But something from your freshman year, there were two moments that I cannot leave behind that I just remembered were from that year. One was we're up on the cross. Now, I think they've since replaced them, but back then these were some rickety crosses. Like we weren't sure if they were going to stay up the day of. So we're up on the cross, and one of the Roman guards who punched me was Josh Davis, aka Buffalo. Hope you're out there watching this. So I go, oh, heck no. And I leapt off the cross and grabbed onto his back, and he starts slinging me around. And Kyle found the humor. Mike did not. Like, dude, you're gonna break that cross if you do it again. So that was the one time only jump from the cross. But the other was the makeup session beforehand, because when you're playing a thief, let's just say you've got the farmer's tan effect going, where your legs may look like a Neapolitan ice cream, especially if you're pasty like me. So they're trying to like evenly tan out your legs before the show starts. Well, it's awkward. So I went to this back room behind Brinley, and our friend Kayla was the applier of makeup at this point. And she's like, all right, I'm going to get under the lining of your skirt here. And this little kid, like a little child, walks in, and she's got her hand going like this under my skirt. And she goes, what are you doing to him? And I wasn't there. I just go, I'm trying to get him out of there. I just go ask your parents. And he runs away. I was like, oh no. So yeah, we probably scarred that child, but
yeah.
That was my single-handedly worst moment of Easter pageant.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, that makeup or paint, whatever it was horrible. Like they kept telling us
so bad.
It did. And they kept telling us like, girls, you're not allowed to shave your legs for 3 weeks. So that way the paint actually sticks to your legs. And I was like, this is so gross. So I finally, my senior year, I boycotted and I did shave my legs. And then
me too.
Okay.
No.
And guess what? The paint stuck.
Yeah.
So they're a bunch of
I just like y'all got hazed.
I just want to point out that we no longer use paint to darken people's skin in this pageant.
You know, I said it was to tan our legs. You just brought out that. I don't think anybody.
I'm just wanting to make a PSA that no longer takes place.
Wow.
Anyhow. And yet I didn't get it canceled for the incident with the child. Anyway, so moving on to the next year. I guess my junior year. So I was kind of salty. I was in a bad place by the time pageant rolled around for various reasons. And I was also kind of upset that they lost my interest card. And so instead of being the thief again, they gave my role to Kendall Doles, who did the role masterfully. But I was kind of like, great, I'm an extra again. This is a blast. So I showed up to like 2 rehearsals and then just showed up the day of. But I don't really remember a whole lot from that year. I do from the year. I don't remember much from pageant that year. I don't want to sound like Ozzy.
I was going to say, there should be a lot that you remember from that year.
Yeah.
So what about that year? I guess spring of 2009, Rebecca. Does anything stand out to you about that year?
Well, it's the only time that I have ever been a man, so that was fun.
Yeah. What was that experience like for you?
Say it again.
What was that experience like for you?
I mean, I kept like touching my beard because I was like, I'm not used to having this extraness on my face. And I forgot who it was, but one of the directors like yelled at me and they were like, you're messing up your coffee grounds, quit it. And I was like, okay, sorry. I don't really remember a whole lot about that year other than being a man. Oh, yes, I do. Tatenda that year, he was like, I guess he wasn't in my freshman year Easter Pageant, or I don't remember him. But that year, like, he's basically like leading the crowd in all of these chants and like going, he is a criminal. And everybody would like repeat after him. And just some of the stuff that he said, it was like, we cannot say that. Like, do not repeat.
And yet, if Tatenda does it, everyone's jumping in anyway.
Yes. But I lost my voice that year after pageant. Like, I could not talk for like a week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really all I remember.
My senior year was interesting because I did not go to any rehearsals. I don't remember who the director was. I don't remember anything about leadership other than me telling one of them, save me a costume, I will be there. Didn't go to any rehearsals. And then I show up and Brett Myers and Aaron Klein had my stuff for me. And so I hung out with them pretty much the whole practice. Of course, Brett and I were like the two old men on the Muppets at this point. We're just like making comments about everything and everybody going on. And it was either that year or the year before, one of those 2 years where I didn't have like much involvement with it. We're walking over, pretty sure it was this senior year. They hand me a donkey. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this donkey? It's Mary's. You're going to walk it out for the opening scene. Just remember when her lines end, I'm like, you do remember that I didn't actually go to any practices. I just know how to be a crowd member. They're like, oh, you got this. So the music starts and I get to walk out with a donkey and I just feel awkward. I'm walking this donkey by myself and I hear Blake Smedley's voice above everyone else saying, hey, which one's the ass? And that was my key moment of Easter Pageant senior year.
Nice. Well, are there any other like significant memories you get from Easter Pageant, Rebecca?
I think just it was a great way to meet people and just get to know people that I probably would have never communicated with in any other fashion, that have turned into amazing and great friends to this day. And it was really cool to, after the pageant was over, you're walking through the actual audience crowd, trying to find your friends or your family or whatever, and just people coming up to you with tears in their eyes and just saying like, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Like, you guys did a beautiful job. It was in that moment that it was kind of like, it's not like about what we did. It's about the story that we told, because it needs to be told to, our world and our community. And so I think that was just why Easter Pageant is so special to me.
Well, I've got a question for both of you. How did it affect y'all spiritually in any way? Or was it just like a fun thing you get to tell an important story, or did you come away with it kind of affecting your spiritual life at all?
You go first.
I think that it definitely gave me a better understanding of kind of what it was like to live in that time, and what it was like to see Jesus performing these miracles, and to really put myself in the shoes of whatever role I was playing that year. Because if I'm honest with myself, I know that I would have been that person who was waving those palm branches, singing Hosanna, but then the very next moment yelling to crucify him on the cross. I know that I would have been that person. We all would have been that person. And so just to really be in that moment and truly experience those things. Like it was really just a growing time each year. You know, I thought that after my freshman year, oh, I know what I'm going to expect, but just every year, like it really did encourage me to grow deeper in my walk with the Lord, and to really read and understand the role of my character each year. Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting point you make about knowing that you would have been the person saying crucify him. Because we often think like, we wouldn't be the fair, like we'd be the ones who get it, but like we probably really wouldn't have. You know, I didn't do the pageant, but I had a moment like that of a realization. There was a novel series that I read called the Circle series. It's like black, green, red, white were the names of the books, and basically it tells a story of this guy who every time he falls asleep, he wakes up in a different world. So like one is the real world like we are in, and another is in like this fantasy kind of world where it tells the story basically of the Bible. But everything that's spiritual is literalized. So like the demons are like actual people, like things that they can interact with, and angels and everything too. And so there's this spot where the person who's supposed to be Jesus is coming, but you don't really know it. And he's saying we have to make peace with like these trolls, like these bad guys. We got to love them too. We got to make peace with them. And the leaders of their religious organization were like, dude, we got to get rid of this guy. And I was like reading the book and I'm like, dude, this guy is like weak. He wants to make peace with the bad guys. Like, no, we got to get rid of him. And then, like, I turned the page and like, oh, that was Jesus. Cool. So I guess I would have been one of the Pharisees. It's just a good eye-opening moment to realize, our sin and us are the ones who put Jesus there on that cross. And we probably wouldn't have been the perfect ones who figured it all out but for the grace of God, we would have been going on right along with the crowd. So that's cool. That's an awesome point. Garrett, what about you?
I think for me, my freshman year, it was first time experience, and it was just really cool to, I don't know, there was just a certain feeling about it. Certain traditions that come around once a year have a certain feeling in the air when they hit, whether it's football or revival or anything, and that's just one that you knew it was almost pageant time. And it was just something about it that just really solidified Easter week. My sophomore year, I'd been a part of a group of friends my freshman year that kind of had a lot of drama over the summer, and I wasn't in the middle of it, but I kind of got cast to the side because of it. So I was a little salty with some people, and there was a big divide, and it affected my church group. It affected all this other stuff. And there was a Sunday where we all got together for a certain occasion that I won't get into, but there was a lesson on forgiveness that was given. And everyone that was in that room that used to be like good friends just kind of had this moment of like, man, what were we even fighting about? And it kind of helped. But then we all got to Easter pageant. Most of us were in it. And by the end, there was something about the message of Easter pageant that just kind of hit all of us. And the people that had been at odds were all kind of like hugging it out. It was like, we're all cool. So that was really nice. And my grandparents got to come see me that year. So it was kind of cool to get to be like, all right, I know they go to church, but this is like another level of something I could share with them. And it was, I don't know, my junior year, nothing, because I made it about me and not the event, and just barely even showed up. So my own fault. I can't really count that one. But senior year, I was the same way pretty much as my junior year. I'm like, all right, I'm just doing this because it's a tradition. I'm just going to show up. I've done 3. I might as well finish strong. And then there's something about that cheesy recording track still had some songs on that could just really hit you in the moment. And I remember sitting there as we were getting near the end, and I'm thinking, dang, dude, I'm never going to experience this again. Like, I'm sad. Like, I'm going to miss this. And I'm standing there with Brett and Aaron, and, they ran with our group, and it's like, I'm with my group, I'm with pageant, and it's all about to end, So I was kind of sad at the end of that moment. So it was kind of not necessarily a spiritual moment, but it just kind of hit me. That's like, I think this meant more to me than I knew it did. And so last year, Hannah and my mom and I got to go to Easter pageant, and it was the first time I'd been since college. And songs trigger nostalgia, man. They get that background audio track going, the pageant starts rolling, and it was cool. It was kind of like being transported back and getting to experience it again without being in it.
That's cool. Updated audio though, right? So I guess they had the same songs.
It's like the same audio. I don't know if they bought a new version. It sounded clear. Maybe it's Mandela effect. I don't know, but but they had a few extra roles, I think, incorporated.
I actually, the Easter after I graduated, Jeff Sutton actually reached out to me. My cousin, who at the time, I think he was 4, he actually was in the pageant as one of the little kids. And Jeff Sutton actually told me, if you want to do a pageant again, we really could use you. And I was like, I can't, like I have ended that chapter in my life. And like, if I go in this year, then I'm going to expect to be invited back every year. And like, I've just got to shut it down. So I actually did not do it that year, but it was really cool to see my cousin be part of it.
Well, they brought back tuba players to play after they graduated, so I guess they can
bring
back.
True.
That's true. That's true.
Oh, cool. So one of the last
they don't bring back couch crew captains. I can't imagine why.
No. One of the last couple questions I want to ask you that we try to ask every guest are, what was your best sports memory while at UMHB?
Oh gosh.
We should start asking people their worst ones too. While you're thinking about it, we asked Colton Hedrick the same question. Do you know what his answer was?
I watched that episode, but I don't remember what it was.
He said he didn't remember any sports he won there. And Garrett asked, "What about the national championship?" And he goes, "What sport?" Garrett was very shocked by that.
I almost turned the camera off.
Either.
Those interviews where someone throws the equipment and says, "This interview's over." Oh, that was almost my moment.
I mean, I guess seeing the national championship in 2016, that was a really cool moment. But I think that another cool moment that I kind of was like, okay, like I'm really taking this leadership role of a couch crew captain, was the year that you, Tyler, and other people painted a rock, and then y'all were banned from the following game. And it was at that moment, at that game, where I was like, okay, it's me and this one other captain. We got this. So that was a really, I wouldn't say fun, but it was a really interesting game.
Your best memory was the one without me. Cool.
Hey, half my career as a captain was me and one other captain. We got this today.
Yeah.
I think my favorite memory of you as a captain was, it was early on. It was during Welcome Week, during our first year as being a captain. And to be honest, I had some I couldn't envision you as a captain. Because I just thought of you as being such just like a goody two shoes kind of Bible study person, not someone who could try to get people intimidated at a game. And we were on the steps of Walton, starting a chant for everyone, and you just got the crowd going nuts. And you had that same energy that you had as when I first saw you as a Welcome Week mom. I'm like, holy moly, she's got it. She can get these people riled up. So that was cool.
Yeah, I had no doubts. So
I think the first moment where I felt like, Tyler, that not that I didn't feel accepted, but like I felt like that you were kind of like, heck yes, you're an awesome captain, was I remember one game at Tiger Field. I don't know what chant it was, but I did a chant and you were like, "That's what's up, Captain Widmer, that's what's up." And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the biggest sports moments I remember with Rebecca was while I was still mascot, because one of the, I think, 3 incidents that involved the Hardin Simmons students actually trying to run around the track to fight us involved Rebecca.
It did.
Nice.
I don't remember what you did. I just remember they wanted to roll.
To be honest, I don't know what I did either.
You laid him out cold. I remember.
Yeah.
I probably did.
Stone Cold Stunner. Me, I just started dancing and like pointing and laughing at that. I didn't even verbalize, but it got a guy escorted out by the police, so I did my duty.
True.
There you go. Yeah, I just made think I was one of them.
No, so
that's an episode for another day.
That is actually the same. I believe it's the same game where everyone thought A Crusader Never Walks Alone was like an actual marketing department thing. And then some people knew it was Dawson Barksdale's phrase for us. It was our code of honor. We did lobby to get it on the graduate rings. But what most people don't know is that it was because Tatenda didn't want to go to the bathroom by himself. And the only bathroom was over on the home side. And he was begging Dawson to be his bathroom buddy. And he's like, Dawson Crew, A Crusader Never Walks Alone. And
you know where he even Tatenda get that from. But even before that, though, don't you? It's from a soccer team. None of us knew that because soccer in 2000.
So he used soccer to get a bathroom buddy, which then turned into our phrase.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Used the soccer chant to convince a buddy to go to the bathroom, which then became our unofficial slogan. Yes.
Well, I told Tatenda not to be too freaked out because as dressed up as he got, I had gone to that bathroom before, and I had to change into Crunk in the stall. And then bust out of it. I just like ran out. So like all the Hardin Simmons people were in line to go pee. And the Crusader busts out of the stall and like runs out past them. And I didn't really waste much time getting back. But yeah, not comfortable.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That was as I discovered soccer in the late 2000s, early 2010s. I learned that all these, some or not all, but a lot of these chants that Tatenda brought that everyone thought was so creative and amazing were just extremely well-known European soccer chants that just nobody in Belton, Texas had ever heard before.
I have to bleep myself. I'm making my job harder here. But you know what chant I really try to do, and I couldn't get anyone but Seth to do it with me. The one where the goalie throws the ball back in. There's a certain thing people scream.
In Mexico?
I don't know. No, because I can only hear it in like a British accent. Like, oh, you and they.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Well, I was about to say there's a very homophobic chant that Mexico had play some games in front of empty stands because they can't keep chanting when the keeper does that.
Wow, we never did that.
No, we did not. That's why I was just like, I don't want to confuse some people.
No.
Gotcha.
Not at all.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was funny. So, well, is that it?
I mean, that's all I have to say. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. I feel like this is like a job interview. Do you have any questions for us?
Well, what would y'all say is one thing that you enjoyed? Well, I guess you've already answered this, Garrett. What was the thing that you enjoyed most about Easter Pageant, Tyler?
At first, it was quoting the lines from that YouTube video during the whole pageant and cracking up. That was one of the hardest times I've ever laughed in my life, to be honest. But then as I grew, it was seeing what it meant to the community just beyond UMHB. And then when I was an intern at Temple Bible and then a pastor at Skyline, it was something that I actually brought my youth group to as an event. And that was cool. Just a cool to see it through their eyes, and a cool event to kind of bridge like my history of my college and how that was special to me with like my actual job of being in ministry. And it kind of became less jokey to me at that point. Although in my head, I was still like quoting those YouTube videos, but I was just laughing about it by that point. So yeah, it kind of evolved in its meaning for me over the years. Definitely wish I would have taken part in it. But you know, I did what I did.
Interesting.
Rebecca, will you be at Easter Pageant tomorrow?
I will not.
Either.
only because our youth group is not attending, and I am going to be there with them.
Things go downhill around there, it sounds like. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, but
I'll be there.
Yeah,
I think. Or I should say today. I don't know
school.
when I'm going to get this thing posted, but tomorrow, today, whenever it is. So, on the day of Easter Pageant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Well,
thank y'all for having me on.
Thanks for being here at such short notice. This was fun.
Absolutely. Well, guys, it's Holy Week, and HSU
still sucks.
Bye.